Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the opening show, coming to you from Wetherby ahead of the Charlie Hall Chase. We will preview that race and others coming away this afternoon extensively in a moment, but we start today's programme with the very sad news we learned yesterday of the passing of Alistair Down at the age of 68. He was a legendary racing journalist and broadcaster and a titan of the press room. Alistair was incomparable when it came to bringing the sport of racing to life, particularly when writing about his beloved Cheltenham, who honoured him last week by naming the press room after him. Wherever one was reading or watching, he had the amazing skill and talent to always make us feel like we were there, watching next to him and experiencing the range of emotions that he was so eloquently able to capture. I, like many of you watching this, would have grown up with Alistair providing me and you with the soundtrack to our Saturdays, and we will miss him enormously. He was quick-witted, one of a kind, and I guarantee you that everyone in the racing press room and beyond was just utterly in awe of his ability. Alongside me this morning, Adele Moran and Mick Fitzgerald. Good morning to you both. Mick, I know that this will be an incredibly sad time to you and everyone that worked with him on Channel 4 racing. He was a real talent and a great man.
Yeah, and you know what, one of the great things about Alistair is, even now, you look at him and you smile. That was the ability he had. He made you feel at ease, that he had a great way about him. And the way he captured some of those magic moments on paper, someone like me can only dream of doing stuff like that.
He's, you know, rightly getting an awful lot of tributes and lovely words said about him, but a lot of people are saying he was a real artist, wasn't he? I'm sure, like me, Adele, you would have grown up listening, reading, watching him. What are your memories of him?
Oh, absolutely. I'm even kind of, you know, some of the horses that ran before my time, when he would do his voiceovers, it would like make you feel like you'd actually been there that day, even though it was so many years ago. Just his way with words, I mean, is a bit of an understatement really, because he was just fantastic, wasn't he? Talented, passionate, absolutely loved his racing, and it really shone through his work. Yeah, definitely. Racing's greatest orator, and we saw him just as you saw there last week. He was at Cheltenham as they unveiled the press room named in his honour, and Alice, who's at Ascot for us today, was able to chat to Alistair, to reminisce. I'm sure that would be a very special memory, the fact that you got to share that time with him last week, Alice. How will you remember Alistair?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of ironic, and Mick will know this, that dear Al, who was such a great friend and colleague, managed to attend what really became his own wake. I mean, it's sort of ironic. He was the most maverick genius you could meet, and I was lucky enough to work alongside him for 10 years, and I used to stand, you know, thinking, he hasn't prepared anything, what's going to happen? And then this extraordinary essay and eulogy would come out of him. He always said that flat racing was for the head and jump racing was for the heart, and he felt jump racing in an extraordinary way, and the way he described it, you know, if a lot of other people said the things he said, you'd say they were a bit over the top, but when he joined the Channel 4 team, he was already a recognised journalist, and probably you're talking about him in the same lights of Lord Oaksey, Bruff Scott, you know, three great journalists who managed to write and speak so wonderfully eloquently about our sport, and we're so lucky to have had them. When I think of the amazing days we covered together, whether it was 3 Gold Cups for Best Mate, that extraordinary showdown of Denman and Corto Star, Moscow Flyer, there were some extraordinary days that he brought to life because he felt them so strongly. And sometimes, you know, he'd be off camera and he'd be welling up with emotion, talking about the sport that we all love so much. And he had an amazing gravitas, because he was sort of the last of the old school, really, where, you know, he was flawed, he knew he was flawed, he had this amazing humbleness, but this extraordinary quick-witted brain. So he was great friends to so many people because he connected with people, because he didn't have an arrogance, he had a sort of almost a fallibility that you could connect to, and he was so kind, you know. I mean, I was just this total little moron standing next to him, but he included me, he helped me, he mentored me, and even in the 12 years since we've stopped working together, every Saturday he'd give me a call on the way home from work. He was, I feel very privileged to call him a colleague and a friend. And when you look back at horrendous days like the London bombings, for example. I was talking to Andrew Franklin, who was our amazing boss at that time, who managed Al in the most fantastic way because he knew he could deliver when he was on screen. And he said, you know, the day he remembers, the London bombings, the BBC and ITV had decided to do rolling news, but Channel 4 decided to carry on with their transmission, which was the July meeting at Newmarket. And I mean, so difficult to carry on with racing, which at that moment felt so stupid next to what was going on in London. And they dropped the titles and Al came on and he did 2 minutes of the most extraordinary words, which made all of us feel okay about what we were doing, made everyone watching feel it was okay to enjoy racing in that moment. He never faltered, and Andrew said for him that was the moment where he just thought, thank goodness for Alistair. And you know, all of us on that Channel 4 team, you know, there were so many different characters pulling together, whether it was Big Mac or Frankham or Jim McGrath or Mike Catmull, and in the middle of it all was Alistair, who stepped in when Brough decided to step back from television, and he came in to review the papers and then stepped up to fronting the coverage for 10 years and then focusing mainly on the jumping. But I'll remember him as this wonderful, old school, passionate man who loved racing, connected with punters. But as Ruby Walsh said, he's gone, but his incredible mastery will stay with us forever. He was an artist, and as I said, I feel lucky that he was my friend and my mentor.
He really was. That was so well said, Al. And hearing some of the tributes on the likes of Willie Twiston Davis, Aidan Coleman, Kieran Schumacher, who grew up with him in the Cotswolds, has been so lovely, because as you say there, he was a great friend to so many. And just reminiscing there with Alice about some of the beautiful words that he would put together, whether it was about Best Mate, Cordo Star versus Denman, and just thinking about it from my childhood growing up, and just having that sort of hairs on the back of your neck moment every time he kind of opened his mouth and spoke so beautifully about this magical sport. He was a great friend to so many. He will be sorely and deeply missed. Alistair Down, who passed away yesterday at the age of 68.